Weird Science
is the revolution.
The Incredible Hulk number 10, written by Philip Kennedy Johnson, guest art by Danny Earls, colors by Matthew Wilson, letters by VC's Corey Petit. There is a cover by Nick Klein, which is good because it reminds you of how good this book used to look. And whether you like Danny Earls or not, it's a step back. From Nick Klein, the art is not great, and it really takes away the one thing that was keeping me going on this book, and that was the Nick Klein art. I had mentioned over and over again that horror aspect and Nick Klein, it felt like each page was a blacklight poster. It looked so cool. Danny Earls, not so much, very cartoony, but it's not just Danny Earls' art. That's the problem here. It ends up being very exposed that Philip Kennedy Johnson doesn't have much of a story going. And I've said this over and over through this. We're at issue 10, and it doesn't feel like the story has even started. And where I end up kind of thinking that a lot of times, and it's happened a lot more recently than it has for me in the past, is that we're 10 issues in, and I couldn't really even explain the big picture story. I couldn't sit there and say, at the end of an issue, I want to say, oh my God, we're this much closer. Oh my God, if this happens, we're screwed. Oh, look at this. These 3 things are set up. If 2 more things happen, that's it, the end of the world. I don't know, because you just keep being told about the eldest. You just keep being told about the mother of horrors, but in the recap paragraph, not really much in the story. And this whole thing kind of just sprung on us. And in a book where you're just kind of randomly wandering around, we suddenly just ended up in New Orleans. You end up having the Hulk get in a fight with Betty Ross, and then for some reason letting Charlie go off. I mean, she's a young girl. She just goes off around 2 a.m. into downtown New Orleans. I mean, it's silly to even think that she wasn't going to get in trouble. And then she gets captured by this monstrosity, Frozen Charlotte, that then goes by another name. We ended up having a ghost detective. It just ends up that this book is, and I'm not going to blow people's minds, it's the monster of the month. We're 10 issues in. That's too long to not really see that overall picture, at least starting, or at least being able to play along with it. I'm going to read the paragraph, the recap paragraph, and I'll ask you if you got the idea from last issue that this was happening. Led by the primordial being called Eldest, monsters all over the world are hunting the Hulk to use him to awaken an entity known as the Mother of Horrors. I kind of think that the Hulk is just kind of randomly stumbling into these monsters, but that's just me. But the Hulk isn't the only person with the monsters after him. Charlie, a teenage runaway who has ended up in Bruce's reluctant care, sought refuge from the police in an old woman's shop, just to fall into the trap set by Eldest and Bruce's wife. I'd never thought it felt like that. And now the Hulk must somehow save Charlie with no knowledge of where she is or what's pursuing her. So what we're going to get is an issue with Ghost Detective. Ghost Detective Francis Bergeron. He has a background with Frozen Charlotte. In fact, it looks like he was killed by Frozen Charlotte back in the day. I think that by the end of this, we're going to end up seeing the Hulk kind of free his soul as well. But it's one of those things. There's not really detective work. Hulk isn't really going to find anything on his own. He's just going to be there as a passenger, stumbling into Ghost Detective to then go back in time. But even the back in time just feels like It's a Wonderful origin story to get an origin for this Frozen Charlotte, a villain, a monster that isn't that interesting and really is so surface level that you could have given this origin with just this Ghost Detective, Francis Bergeron, saying, hey, get this, have a spread page at the most. Because when they go back in time, it's through narration. They're not really even seemingly back in time. They're kind of like ghost walking back in time. It's really not good. It really isn't. I said that it reminded me of the Ben Percy Ghost Rider book, where you were just going town to town. I get it. That's kind of a trope of horror like this. But this overall story, you have to have a big picture story that gets people involved. And unfortunately, I thought that they weren't really doing that in the Ghost Rider book, which really seemed to lose a lot of people after issue 10. And here we are. And I think most people would agree that without Nick Klein's art, this book just is not that great. But we'll go into it. You end up having Charlie running away from frozen Charlotte just to set up more of, oh my God, Charlie, I like Charlie. So you want to have her saved, but she's just running away from this big, hideous monster, but drawn in kind of a cartoony way by Danny Earls. It doesn't really get anything scary. Now, in the meantime, Hulk's downtown throwing cars, poor New Orleans here. And you have somebody's like, oh my God, call somebody, call somebody. The policeman yells, like who, stupid? The cops? It's the he should have just said, like, I ain't doing anything. I'm out of here. Well, everybody's running away. Oh my God, this is crazy. Hulk throwing cars. Where Hulk then looks down an alley trying to find Charlie and ends up running into Ghost Detective Francis Bergeron. Now, there's a device that you end up having Philip Kennedy Johnson use. He has a stutter. And I think that the stutter is only here, and it better be here for a reason, because it doesn't really do character work. What I think it is by next issue, we're going to be able to see, oh my God, this little doll, because this all involves these dolls. Oh my God, that is Bergeron, because he's going to talk to Hulk Stutter and then Hulk will be able to free him. I hope that that's the case, because that seems to be the setup. But really, this just goes point A, point B, point C. Hulk runs into Bergeron. He says, oh, this girl's missing. I think that it must be frozen Charlotte. And doesn't realize he's a ghost. He's like, we better call the militia. We better call the Louisiana militiamen. And Hulk's like, the militiamen, they're all gone. And you're dead. And then, what? I'm not dead. And then he looks at himself and goes, oh God, I'm dead. And then he starts yelling, they're in the dolls. They're in the dolls. And then, boom, we're back in time. Like, there's the deal. And the in the dolls deal is the people that you have frozen Charlotte capture. She kind of traps them in these dolls. So they go back in time to see Francis Bergeron when he was alive on the case. But like I said, it's a wonderful origin story. And you just get a series of murders. You get a series of murders as they realize, oh no, it's this frozen Charlotte. That's basically what this is. There's not much else to it. But they do say that at one point, the big wordplay, the big thing is that this killer, Frozen Charlotte, ends up using unnatural physical talents, and they end up finding these Frozen Charlotte type China dolls. That's where they get the name Frozen Charlotte, from these porcelain dolls made of bone powder. It's not real clever, because I don't know that a lot of people are like, oh, I get it, those Frozen Charlotte style China dolls. Oh my, I have a collection myself. Just ends up where, there you go, you get the name. That's what we're getting, because I think that we could have figured out, okay, she's, supernatural, unnatural. Well, we saw that. She kills people. Okay, that's not a stretch. It does show that she ends up killing Francis Bergeron. At one point, when Hulk first meets him, he wants to deputize Hulk, and he needs his badge. Oh my God, my badge, it's missing. Later then, very quickly, we're going to find the Hulk walking in the lair of Frozen Charlotte, and he'll step by the badge. And even then, it's supposed to, I guess, be a wow moment of, oh my God, you mean the ghost detective is dead? I couldn't believe it. But it looks like he's on the case. Frozen Charlotte ended up killing him. And so with all that, it's like Hulk has to, stop this circle of violence. He has to solve the case. It wants to maybe play out to be a noir thing. Not quite, but kind of like the idea, oh my God, I have 24 hours to solve my own murder. But there's no stakes except getting Charlie, obviously. But Hulk ends up from there, boom, to get to see the lair of Frozen Charlotte, to now know where the lair of Frozen Charlotte is, so he can enter in the present now. And that's the other thing. You go back in time, and again, it's like ghost walking deal, and you're not having any stakes. Once the origin's done, Hulk is in the present. He goes into the lair. He starts yelling out, hey, where's the kid? Stupid kid. Starts banging around, and then he walks into a room, and you have all of these Frozen Charlotte style China dolls that are all, help us, please help us. I can't feel my legs. I think you got more problems than your legs there. And these dolls, some are older, some are cracking, some are there. And that's where I said, I think at the end, he's going to get this one doll and it's going to have a stutter and he'll realize it's Francis Bergeron. But in the meantime, you get to a point where it promises or hints at some action because really the Hulk is just walking around. He threw a car over his shoulder earlier, made the cops scream and yell, everybody's screaming. But at the other points, he's just walking along being told pretty much that's it, being told an origin story of Frozen Charlotte. So while Hulk is running around, he's like, where are they? Where is she? I want that girl. And you have Frozen Charlotte say, which one? I mean, seriously, I have like 8 million here. You have your pick. And says that, and it's one of those things. I keep them as treasures, angels, every one. It's okay, but it's kind of goofy. And like I said, the art is way, way off. Some of the close-ups, or at least the faces of the Hulk, I don't know what's going on. I think that his eyes might rain and he might have mind movies. But through all this, you don't even have a play of, Banner. He's still trapped in the other part. So you have Hulk just walking around looking really crazy. And then she says, I saved them all of them from the world that would see them ruined and broken, from the immortals who would pass upon them their vicious judgment. And then says, I tell you, you'll not have a single one. And then goes to attack. Now, this is the crazy thing. As this is all going on, this is Frozen Charlotte, but doesn't go by Frozen Charlotte because that was just what the newspapers ended up coining the phrase. She goes by Nephil, Mother of Angels, and things just keep getting more and more convoluted in a story. You don't have to there's no story here. Why make things convoluted beyond that? Why are you doing that? Why not just have her say, I'm not really named Frozen Charlotte, but what the heck? I'll go with it. And attacks. But really the problem here, the art, the lack of action, and the overall series is going nowhere. As I said earlier, at the end of this, all I can say is, oh man, Hulk's got to fight Nephil, Mother of all Angels. That's Frozen Charlotte. But how does this really tie into the eldest? How does this get us closer to bringing out the Mother of all horrors? Who is the Mother of all horrors? Who is the eldest? I mean, you could tell me that but if you had a lineup of monsters and you have 5 monsters there. One's the eldest and one is the Mother of all horrors. I couldn't pick them out. And that's a problem 10 issues in. Who is the big villain? Where are they? What are they actually doing? And let me see an overall picture so I can play along. And I'm getting frustrated only because I like Philip Kennedy Johnson. The one problem he has is he is pacing. He starts to wander a bit. Most people will point out his best thing, obviously, was the War World saga over at DC Comics, in Action Comics. And even that in the middle, it started to get a little bit with the lore, and he wanted to get this nice little things, but it kind of, needed a better pacing because by the end, he ran out of time. He ended up having to end it because they wanted Superman to come back to Earth. And then his next arc, that happened again because they wanted Jason Aaron to come on the book. And so I hope that this isn't one of those stories where it starts to wander even more and more, and then it gets canceled, and we never really get a good resolution. He then has to, hurry up and whatnot, but we need Nick Klein back. And I would think that they're getting ready for the whole blood hunt stuff or whatever is going on. I don't know. We need Nick Klein because that was the big play of the book. But let me know what you think. I think that this one is pretty bad. I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 10. Even with Nick Klein, might have put it up to a 7 at the moment because I love Nick Klein's art and it worked really well, but there's not much of a story here. You can tell fill-in artist and kind of a meandering fill-in story, but 3 issues of Frozen Charlotte. I mean, holy moly. But that is it for now. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will talk to you all later.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.